Well, welcome to the Midsters podcast, your podcast for being bold and saying yes to everything midlife. We're going to talk today about resilience, and it's a big subject. And I think that we live resiliently just as humans because nothing's perfect. And we do get kicked around, and there's lessons to be learned and challenges to overcome. And that's basically resilience. It is such a part of us and who we are. I'd like to know a little bit about your thoughts on that, Leslie Ann. I think it's a good subject. I don't know which one. I think we both just came up with it because it is a theme in all of our lives, and it is something that we can build upon.
And it's an important theme in midlife because in midlife you go through so many changes in terms of your living situation, your finances, your health, the health of others around you, that you do need to have resilience and able to weather the different changes that are going to be coming your way.
We think of resilience, though, as something that we build because there's been a bump in the road. Would you say the same?
I think some people have natural levels of resilience.
Like an innate ability.
An innate ability to overcome challenges, disappointment. Some people have mindset, right? Some people like you have a sunnier, more upbeat mindset than other people. But I think it's there in everyone, the ability to sort of meet a challenge and overcome it. It's there. It can be cultivated. It can be nurtured, but it's there.
Is there anything specifically right now that you feel that you're having to tap into some type of resilience to get through a certain period in your life or a situation in your life or an experience? You can go anywhere with that.
Yeah. I mean, not particularly, actually. I definitely have in the past had situations and times in my life where there were big stumbling blocks that felt like they were immovable, and I had to dig deep in order to get past them. I think there are certain lessons that are learned from those times that I take forward that I know I can lean into the next time a stumbling block crosses my path. How about you?
I think over maybe specifically right now, I think I'm trying to teach and help my kids more than anything with resilience and reminding them how strong they are. But when I think about my whole life, and I was talking to you about this earlier, there are like 3 different things that have built resilience, a lot of things, but 3 main things that I can kind of just put my finger on with example. One was when I lost my first dog, like that mattered. Grief. So grief would be different points in my life. And I'm actually grieving a friend that recently passed away right now, just in the last few weeks. And I think grief is a place that's helped me each time I deal with that, be more resilient for the next time. I think grit, like when I've had to really use grit and do something I didn't want to do, I didn't think I could do, definitely didn't want to do as well as think or do or could do. I think getting through that, using the grit and getting on the other side of that has definitely built a lot of resilience for myself throughout my life. And then the third one would be grace. There have been times, again, something else I'm going, life going through right now, where I'm having to tap into giving grace to someone over a certain situation. And it is hard, but I know that it's building. I don't think of it as giving them grace for resilience or that I'm going to become more resilient. It's just the process. It is what's happening. So I think those things, I think grief has helped build my resilience. I think grit, and I think grace.
On the third one, grace, I think just a little spin on that.
Yeah.
I think in my own life, what has helped me to become more resilient is giving grace to myself. And we've also talked about this a little bit, but I think sometimes that we grow up believing that we have to always be good. We have to be perfect. We have to be better. It's a competition. We have to get A grades. We have to be the best player on the team. We have to write the best brief, at work. And maybe in those places there is room for that, but it leads us to this belief that we have to be bigger than what we are, and reminding myself that I am human and that humans are imperfect
Right.
is actually a place I go to when I need resilience. It's okay if I'm having a hard time with something. It's okay if I fail at something. It's okay if something disappointing happens in my life, because that's the human experience.
Right.
And embracing that for the beauty it is, right? Being human,
Oh, yeah.
truly leaning into
Right.
being human is a beautiful thing.
Right.
So that's a place that I go when I feel I need strength.
And I think challenges, when you're challenged by hard things, there's a beauty on the other side of that. I mean, there definitely is. We were just talking about a quote. I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's basically everything has a crack, but that's how the light comes in. And it's true. I think with challenges in life and having to tap in and to get through something that you don't want to get through, don't think you can get through, it makes you stronger for yourself, like what you're talking about, for yourself, which there is a beauty and you want to do that, but also for others. I've seen you in recent years provide so much support to individuals that have needed it, that has helped build up their resilience. I think it's a gift. I think if we've built up resilience in our life, or we just live that way, what a gift to give to somebody else, because we're all on our own journey. And a lot of times we don't get back up. There are people that don't get back up on their feet, or they abandon things, their dreams, things that they wanted to do because they don't think they can get through it. When I was younger ages, we think about things that we want to do, and if we can't do something or don't want it, we're very reactive. Like we'll just abandon it and not care or what. But as we've gotten older, I think because of the resilience that we've built up and the people that we've become, I just kind of know I'll get through it. It might not be perfect. It's like if I had to paint a picture right now or something like that, I'd get through it. Might not be the most beautiful thing, but I just know I'll get through it. It's not something that I would put my paint brushes down and say, I'm just not going to do it. Might have when I was younger. I was like, I'm not doing this. What the hell? No. But now I
will. And sometimes you don't have a choice, right? I mean, things happen that you have to go through whether you want to or not. I appreciate you saying about my playing a supporting role for people, because I do think that that's important. It's something I try to do. But I also think the flip side of that is in the times where I've had my most difficult moments, knowing that there were people there that I could lean on was really important. And to me, a piece of resilience is understanding that you really don't have to go through things alone. I think sometimes things happen to us that we naturally feel ashamed of or afraid of. We don't want to admit them to other people. We don't want to admit them to ourselves even. And that keeps us closed in, which makes it much, much harder. When you realize that you really don't have to carry that alone, whatever shame you have, whatever fear you have, someone else has been there. Yeah. And if you open that up and share it with someone, they're carrying the load with you. And that helps enormously. I just think it's hard for people sometimes to see that. And I know with people that I've helped, I've heard that. I'm so ashamed of this. You don't need to be ashamed. You just need to find someone that will walk with you.
What are your thoughts on ways to, besides the collective, which I think is great, ways to foster resilience? Like somebody that might not have it, what are things they can do that might help? I think therapy is one.
Therapy is great.
Therapy is one, because you can learn strategies. Anything else that pops out at you?
We've talked before about the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
Right? So anything you can do to strengthen your body physically is going to help with your mind, right? And your mental attitude, your mental state. If you're stressed because you're eating poorly or you're drinking too much, or, you're relying on substances to help you sleep or help you get up, that's taxing your ability in real time to deal with problems, because emotionally and mentally you're depleted. So taking care of yourself physically, I think, is important. I know for me, in times that I've really felt like I was facing a challenge that I couldn't do. I know this sounds really weird. It's a form of journaling. Journaling's important.
Oh, yes.
I specifically journal and would write down things, occasions when I have succeeded at something,
It's great.
to remind myself I actually am capable.
Mm-hmm.
I am competent. I have strength. I have resources that in myself that I can draw on. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you just don't think about that.
Right.
You only think about the thing ahead of you and how scary it is. But when you stop and say, wait a minute, I may not have crossed this crossroad before, but I've been to other ones that have been equally daunting and I've gotten through. It's just a reminder that you have the capacity.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that reflecting on the things that you've done well gives you confidence that you're going to get to the other end of this. I think for me, creative outlet is important for me. I know it sounds odd, but just taking my camera and going out, it does put me at a mindset where I feel stronger and in a better place to be able to handle something and get through something. Creative outlet is one, but then the other thing is nature. Like, I think nature's such a gift.
Yeah. Every day.
And nature fixes everything. So I think getting out in nature as well, freeing your mind of things, you just feel better, like you're ready to tackle something, or it changes your perspective, right? You're in nature, you're able to have a more open mind, you're thinking of things. I think that's very helpful as well. Resilience seems like such a big word. I think that we use it every day, all the time. I think that we build it in our children, as my parents built it in me, that you can do this. Just work, not necessarily harder, but put everything you have into it. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Like, that's a great message, I think, to tell ourselves and to tell kids, it's okay. You don't have to be successful in everything. If you think that you're going to be successful or need to be successful in everything, you're going to need a lot of resilience to pick yourself up off the ground.
Over and over again.
Yes. Yeah. Just accepting things for what they are, I think, is important too.
I think it's easier as you get older because you look back and you have more history there of both struggle and success, right? And so you can look back on that and say, oh, okay, this isn't as hard as it really seems. It's a lot harder when you're young.
It is.
Definitely a lot harder. Yeah. And I think a good parent leans into that.
I think part of why it's so hard when you're young is you have lower emotional IQ, intelligence, and just emotional fortitude, like, in general. It's not built. I think it is something that we build within ourselves. But yeah, I agree. When you're younger, it is harder, but I think it's harder because of that emotional maturity as well, right? Get angry, you give up, like, not going to do this. And then as we get older, we know it might be hard. But if we want to do it, we can do it. But yet we know, we did an episode on the curated life. So we know if it's something we don't want to do,
we can say
no and not do it.
Right.
But I think resilience is wonderful. I think just in life, we build it, but I think more than anything, it's such a gift to, like you were talking about, and I talked about too,
to pass on to others. Yeah. And in a way of doing that, actually, and I think this is actually more of a male take on things. I mean, I think women tend to lean more, this is generalizing, so perhaps it's not fair, but of the women I know, more of us are more likely to go to our friends or to go to a therapist, talk through our troubles, talk through our problems, and come out on the other side. Men tend to not do that as much. But what I see men do, specifically, I know my husband does this, he gets a great deal of inspiration from biographies and seeing that other people have struggled with things. And so that's actually another thing that helps build resilience, right? Sharing stories and understanding other people's challenges and how they overcame them, and not necessarily superhuman humans, but like real people. So reading and reading specifically other people's stories, biographies, autobiographies, is actually really useful.
That's a good idea. I never really thought about that, but I do think of, when you were saying that, and I was in the science field, is sciences, like scientists, think how many times they fail, in their research, but they keep going and keep going. Thank goodness.
Right.
because there's pot of gold at the end of that rainbow for a lot of people, whether it's chemo, whatever it might be. But it's being resilient. So,
and a more mundane example, similar thing, baseball players. Baseball is one of the sports that I watch. I love baseball. A good baseball player may have like a 300 average, which means like 7 out of 10 times he gets up to bat, he's not getting a hit. That's a lot of failure. But you have to get up to the plate time after time after time. You may have just struck out at your last at bat. You've got to get up there again, and you've got to face the pitcher, and you got to take a shot. And, that's resilience. I mean, to me, that's actually a great analogy for what resilience really is. It's that, yes, this is going to be hard. Yes, you're going to fail a lot at life, but you're occasionally going to hit one out of the park and it's going to feel great. And you have to know that you have it within you to get up to the plate time and time again.
I think that comes with age and wisdom.
Yeah.
And I think those things build confidence. And so as we get older, we know that we win more than we don't, for the most part, if we're living purposeful life and making good decisions and all of that. So I think it's easier when we're older.
But that's a piece of something too, right? One of the things that helps with resilience is focus. What are you focusing on? Right? We have so many things that happen in our lives. We can focus on the things that are the lesser, the things that we're struggling with, or the things that aren't going well. Or we can remind ourselves to focus on the things that are good. Everybody's got something good in their life if they seek it out and really focus on it. That's what you should be using and relying and leaning into when you're having a tough time. Gosh, my job may be going badly, but I've got a beautiful family.
Right. The gratitude.
Right.
Gratitude's the other thing.
Gratitude's great for building resilience. Yeah.
It is. I mean, just putting yourself in other people's shoes and seeing, like reading the biography, seeing what other people have done, and that you can do that too. I mean,
I think actually, as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking of two other things that I think help with building resilience. One is to remember that what you believe about yourself and your abilities is the story you tell yourself in your head. So tell yourself a good story. Instead of saying, I can't do this, remind yourself that you can. And maybe it's going to be hard, but you've got the strength. If you control the dialogue in your head, you can actually make a lot of progress in turning your brain around in the way it thinks.
Manifesting.
Yeah, it's like manifesting. Yeah. Exactly. And we've talked about that
like
before.
Thomas the Train too.
Like
I could.
I think I can. I think I can. I mean, I think that's really important.
I do too.
And the other piece of it actually is to make sure that you don't let things happen to you. So if you're in a sticky situation or you're facing a challenge, deal with it head on. Take some sort of action to resolve it. Do something. Don't do nothing. I mean, there are occasions where doing nothing is the right approach, but that's making a choice that in this decision, I'm not going to do anything, rather than being paralyzed and not moving forward in any way.
Right.
Think through the problem, decide if there's an action that you can take or need to take, and take it.
Yeah.
They say it's always better to have a decision made, to make a decision than to have a decision made for you.
Right.
And when you see that you can make decisions, you actually start to reclaim some of your power. And it's that empowerment that actually helps with resilience.
That's a good point. I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking about resilience and building it and having a dialogue in your head, and how we, like Thomas the Train, will tell our kids things. But I think it starts so young, building resilience. And the thing that I think about immediately is, like, it is an emotion, right? We're trying to handle an emotion of some sort, I think, is a lot of what resilience is about. And I immediately thought of when my pediatrician, and I did it, would tell me just to let my child cry and let them learn to self-soothe. It's learning innately how to handle that emotion. So when you are alone in that crib, or the light goes off, or whatever might be happening, you're able to self-soothe. You're able to tell yourself it's going to be okay. So I think we build resilience all our lives. We've discussed about my parents had to make a big move recently, downsizing from a home and going into an assisted living. And they've needed a lot of reassurance. And it has been very hard for one of my parents to get their footing again, and the resilience that's needed. and is going through therapy, has a lot of collective support, which is important. But as I'm watching one of my parents now, I actually can see them for the first time, and it's been several months, going back to doing things to almost to self-soothe. I remember like one of the first times I went back, and it's my mother who may listen to this. I love my mother. Was the rocking. And, certain things to help self-soothe, to build a resilience, to be able to handle that emotion and be able to get to the other side of it. So when we see other people going through struggles and are really reaching deep to somehow self-soothe or to talk themselves into being able to handle a situation, being able to give them a hand and help them through it. Because I think of myself, basically like I can get through most things. I think I can.
Yeah, you're pretty sure.
But I might not always be able to do it. My parent was super strong. This individual is probably the strongest emotional individual I've ever known. Not that hasn't had depression, different low moods, different things in life. But as always, talk about grit. This Scottish woman has more grit than anybody I know, but found herself in a situation where she needed that help, that collective help and support, but also had to tap into those things, that self-soothing from a very young age. So it's important. We should honor it. We should honor our emotions. We should honor the fact that we have these challenges, because these challenges allow us to handle bigger challenges later. Resilience is built upon. And I think for listeners, that's one thing that we really should focus on, is not like being woe's me, even though, believe me, if you need to waddle in your pain, I've waddled in pain. But knowing that we are going to be stronger, that it is going to be better, that they may be a bigger challenge that we're going to have to take on. I love this thought, and I've spoken about it before, and I actually just spoke about it with a friend. You may think I'm nuts, but you've probably heard it before. I honestly believe the universe, and I'm a spiritual person, so outside of God, just the universe in general has its own wisdom. It has its own wisdom. I believe it knows generally what I need in life, things that I cannot even see or foretell. And I believe that the struggles we go through life, and maybe it's kind of a Pollyanna thought, or, being too optimistic. I'm not a pessimist by any means, but I think they're for reasons. And I think helping somebody get through something, like I've seen you do so beautifully, helps them build resilience, because we don't know what they're going to have. We don't know what life gives us. So anyway, just my thoughts about emotion and resilience in general.
Well, I think, different people have different emotional makeups innately. So for some people, it could be harder than for others. Of course.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. And I love the thing about babies self-soothing, because, that was something with my son when he was an infant. And I think this, but he was hospitalized immediately after he was born because he was vomiting, and they didn't know what was wrong with him. It turned out after a week of extensive testing, he had gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, and he just would vomit every time he ate. And so the doctor said for the first 9 months of his life, every time I nursed him, I had to hold him upright for half an hour until the food would sort of drain down into his system. Well, what that meant is, most babies, they fall asleep after they eat. He didn't fall asleep in a crib. He fell asleep in my arms every day for 9 months. And that was actually something that the doctor sort of pointed out later.
Might be hard.
It's going to be very hard, because he missed that piece of learning to self-soothe. Mm-hmm. So, and I think, yeah, really fascinating. He and I have a very close relationship. We talk about things when he's troubled. I do try to help him through things. And I'm always mindful of that. He has a different journey through emotional pain than a lot of people, because he didn't have that piece when he was a child.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so you do have to figure out, knowing your own history and where you may have weaknesses in your emotional development. And some people have big weaknesses in their emotional development, much worse than, having GERD when you're a baby.
Right.
Abandonment issues or abuse issues that are really hard to get through. But know that there's a way. And if you can talk to somebody and figure out a way to address those things, to kind of give your inner child what it missed or what it's still lacking, is a big way of kind of helping with resilience.
Yeah.
And you talked about soothing. I mean, a lot of people who are in that situation pick sort of negative self-soothing activities, drugs, alcohol,
Yeah.
but there are lots of healthy ways of learning to self-soothe, and just understanding and embracing that this may be harder for you than somebody else, but there are things you can do to help ease your pain.
Exercise is one.
Exercise is a great one.
Yeah, you had mentioned it, going to the gym or whatever earlier, and it is true. It is a self-soothing, and
Absolutely. But even taking warm, hot baths,
walking in nature.
walking in nature, listening to music, right? Reading
music's a
poetry.
big one.
Music's huge.
Right.
These are things that you can do to help calm yourself down when you're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then that gets you to a place where you can find the strength you need over the longer haul.
Talking about resilience in midlife in general and beyond, and you've just been through this. And I talked about grief as being one of those things that builds can build resilience. But when people retire, I mean, there's me and you. When we retired, and like life's our oyster at the moment. But that's not for everybody. They have grief. They feel this huge loss.
Yeah.
They feel isolated because they're not around people and they don't have that companionship. They feel loss of purpose because they're not doing something, loss of finances. There's a lot of grief to get through for some people when they retire. And the self-soothing piece, some of the things that you talked about as well, like exercise or therapy. I mean, finding those things to help build resilience through that. Because I think that retirement is a very challenging time. I think midlife, the loss of having your children in the home and the purpose that you have your husband, that's a huge purpose.
Right.
But you're still having the empty nest, and you have to be resilient. You have to go on your day and know that you still have purpose and that your kids still need you.
And allow yourself time to grieve too. Right. I mean, that's a piece of it, right?
Yes.
Is recognize where you are and embrace it. When my daughter went off to college, because she's the younger of the two, my son was already away. When she left for college, you know this, the first week after she left, I slept in her bed every night and cried into the pillow. And it took me a week. And then I was like, okay, I'm good. But I gave myself that gift of allowing myself to grieve for that period of time, for the transition that we were in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important too, is recognizing that grief is okay. Right. It's not just something that you have to go through. Right. It's a natural part of life.
Yeah.
And if you can embrace it a little bit and allow yourself, give yourself the grace to experience the grief, you'll get through to the other side.
Do you think resilience is something you build or something you remember you already had?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's something that we all have, that we have to kind of reach into and tap, but we can certainly strengthen it and make it less of a struggle for ourselves to access it.
Great.
I think that resilience is probably something we've always had. And I think about that because we're able as babies to just self-soothe. We're not taught that. We find it within ourselves and we do it and we build on it. So I think it is part of our DNA. I absolutely think it's part of our DNA. I think of certain populations of people around the world as well that have nothing, think they have everything. They're so resilient. It doesn't matter. It's just within them. The challenges, they've got a smile on their face at the end of the day, no matter what.
Yeah. I just a quick anecdote. Many years ago, when my husband and I were newly married, he talked me into doing a 150K bike tour because, he's like really into cycling and I'm really not. And it was definitely a challenge. And honestly, the man was a saint because he kept riding ahead and then coming back, riding ahead and coming back. And we've since said that I did 150K, he did 300. But there was a point where we were going up a hill and it was the second day. It was a 2-day bike ride. It was the second day, just past the midpoint of the second day. And I was just completely depleted. And I just was like, I can't do this. In that moment, I forgot that I actually do have resilience, right? So what I did is I looked down at the road under my feet and just at my feet pedaling rather than the road ahead of me, because I needed to do something to give myself enough strength to get up that damn hill. And it wasn't going to happen if I focused on the wrong thing, which was the road ahead.
Right.
What I needed to do was just see the road moving under my feet. And so it's a weird answer to your question, but I think for me, it was, yes, I had the resilience. I had to remind myself it was in there. And then I needed to do something to allow myself to make use of it, because there's different ways of approaching a problem. I needed to find the right way to approach that problem. And I've always said ever since then, my husband understands the analogy very well. When we're in a difficult time, we just need to look down and watch the pedals move.
I love that too.
Yeah, that was a challenge.
Well, I remember like when I did that sprint triathlon, I swear I was not, first of all, I didn't realize it was going to be all hills, even though I had trained, and I didn't think I was going to make it. I was like in last of the pack of all of that. And I had tears in my eyes, and I would envision myself like when I'm getting in the car of somebody that's coming to rescue me. Like, I don't have to finish this. Somebody's going to come by and I'll be able to get in their car. And then I would think Robert had just told me that my boys had made these posters. Congrats, Mom. They were going to be at the finish line. And so when we think about if it was there or if we build on it, that was just there. It's like, no, I am doing this. I'm going to cross that finish line. My boys are going to be there. It was just something I knew I had.
Yeah.
You know?
What keeps you going on the days when you're not feeling strong? Do you have daily rituals, support systems? Is it a mindset shift?
I almost hate to answer this the way I'm going to answer it. But things that if there's a day that's not going my way, I am so fortunate that I wake up and the sun is out. So I don't think of myself as not being able to get through things. But when things are maybe are challenges to me that I wasn't expecting, like I expect my day to go great. I just wake up that way. If it's not, it's taking that time for myself. So it is exercising, is getting out in nature. It's calling my closest of friends. It's calling my husband and getting that strength from somebody else. So those are the things that help me when I maybe don't feel as resilient or don't have what it needs to get through the day. So
I'm trying to think back to particular times when I've had really big challenges in front of me. And I think the thing that has always kept me going is hope, because any given day is just that given day, and there will be another day. And in the day that you're in, if it's a difficult day, if you focus on the things that you can control and just try to let go of the things you can't, that can be very hard, knowing you don't have control over everything. And sometimes, I mean, I've been in situations where unfair things have happened that the capacity to accept that is challenging, right? It's like, it's really hard to dig deep and find that, like, I just have to accept this because I cannot change it. But here is something I can change, and it will move me incrementally towards tomorrow, and tomorrow will be better than today.
Thinking about resilience, I used to, not so much anymore, but I always used to think of it as a strength. Like, and it is a strength, but we've got to remember we're being resilient about huge challenges. And there's an emotional piece of that. So learning to be able to be strong emotionally, identify that emotion that you're feeling, whether it's anger, whether it's loneliness, whether it's isolation, understanding that emotion and trying to think about those things that attack that emotion that help you build up resilience of that challenge. So I think in a way it's two parts. It's not just being knocked down and being able to stand up on your feet. It's also being able to recognize, like, why do I feel this way? And what can I do to help myself through this emotion and build resilience? So if something bigger happens or I have to deal with this emotion again, I have those tools in my toolbox.
I think that's an excellent point and an excellent discussion.